Welcome to another video from Roland Mösel, founder of Planetary Engineering Group Earth. Universal basic income. Some people dream of it in unbelievable heights, how much it should be. But why at all? I will show you today some arguments, and these arguments will much differ from other arguments for the universal basic income. So let's start in the year 1895. In this year, Svante Arrhenius discovered that the carbon dioxide has an influence on the climate, and when humanity emits much carbon dioxide from burning fossil fuels, in this time mainly coal, the temperature will rise on Earth. So, after this discovery, what would a normal civilization do? A normal civilization would have made 1914 the first big worldwide climate conference. And 25 years later, in the year 1939, there would have been the final climate conference on the exit of CO2 emissions. Yes, maybe famous airplane constructors like de Havilland or Messerschmitt would have been famous constructors of wind energy systems, a similar area like the construction of airplanes, but complete different purpose. In this case, we would have been below 350 ppm, and we would not have big problems with all these actions. But now we have lost so many decades. Now the target has to be minus 250% CO2 emissions until we are again at 350 ppm. And this could be at the beginning of the 22nd century. Chances are little that we can do it until the end of the 21st century. But still, humanity has some crazy ideas that to do nearly nothing is enough. Yes, the net zero emission target by 2050. This means we believe Earth will continue eternally to absorb every year 20 billion tons of CO2. And so we have only to reduce emissions until there are only 20 billion tons per year, and everything will be fine. Oh, this graphic shows the real target and the net zero emission target are very different. More than 4 times different in terms of CO2 emission. Here we have a table from 1750 to now about CO2 emissions and the CO2 in ppm, parts per million in the atmosphere. So we need comprehensive conversion of the system as quickly as possible. This is the main reason for the universal basic income. Many old methods are not compatible with good survival in the future. The conventional agricultura, bad houses that cannot be renovated, vehicles with combustion engines, and the human right to work. And at the human right to work, this is really in the Human Rights Declaration at point 23. there are a lot of points behind it. So full employment as a state goal. Oh, it's so great that everybody has to work full time. Oh, great to do this. The unemployment insurance. Why do we need this? Oh, when you can only exist if you have a work, you have to have an insurance when you lose your work that you can still exist. Protection against dismissal. Yes, there are many laws how complicated it is to dismiss a person because she has to live from the wage. And when you dismiss it, she has no wage, so we have to protect the person. And also the minimum wage. All this can vanish when we have a universal basic income. One very important thing to make the society compatible with universal basic income are how much for living. In a high-price country, only the rent, maybe you're somewhere in California and for a not so good apartment you pay 2,500 euro a month. And in a low-price country, you can do with this money repayment for house. You have a very good car. All the other expenses of the family. And you can save some money for bad times. And so, in a high-price country, the employer has to pay a much higher wage. And this is more and more complicated. So he loses competitivity against companies in low-price countries. And California is now a land where people go away from it in masses. Companies go away. So this is a very severe theme. Now let's look about something similar like unconditional basic income. For example, in Austria, when you have children, you get money each month for these children. And how much you get for the children depends on how old the children are. It starts with 114 euro, and when the children are grown up, it goes up to 165 euros a month. Next, we have in Austria something like a unconditional basic income for retired persons. It's usual in Austria you have to pay social security when you are employed. Also self-employed people have to pay social security. And at the end, when you retire, they make a calculation and maybe you get only 700 euro per month. And in this case, you get a rise to 1,000 euro a month alone or to 1,578 a month when you are together with a partner. So this is some form of unconditional basic income for retired people. It cannot happen that you are in pension and receive only 500 a month because Austria says, okay, that's not enough for living. We give you another 500 a month, so you have 1,000 and so you can exist. But this, in German, Ausgleichszulage, difference subsidy is only for a little bit more than 2% of the whole population. And it's not 1,000 a month for a single person. Maybe most of them has already own pension rights, where they paid 40 years when they work every month the social insurance fee. Maybe it's only 20–30% more what they get out. So it's a very small amount of money what is used for this system. Now let's look what people think how big universal basic income should be. Full participation of a single person with a rental apartment used only by him and this in a high-price city. Oh, really? Do you really believe that universal basic income could be as high that this could be possible? Who should pay for this? A clear no to such universal basic income illusions. Here is not the luxury to redistribute, but a civilization on the brink of self-destruction. So, don't dream from very high universal basic income. We have a better dream for you. Instead, have a great life in a new land for energy settlement. Land for energy should be in the future very cheap building ground, but only climate protection superiority houses are allowed to build there. And a climate protection superiority house is the maximum distribution a single person can do against the climate change, because these houses produce so much energy, and this is a big contribution. Now let's look on a family of 4 persons, 2 grown up, 2 children, 2020 and 2030. 2020, both are employed. 2030, they had unluck with their jobs. They are both unemployed. And let's look on their income. It's a little less than before, but the expenses decreased so much that they have every month more free money than before. Let's look on the statistic. Robert, 1,500 per month netto. His wife is only part-time employed and has 800 a month. And there are 2 children, and they get 150 a month child subsidy. They live in a rented apartment and have to pay 900 a month. But that's not all. There is room heat, there's hot water, sewer and garbage fees, other operating costs for the house, and the fuel for the car tax and insurance. Then they have to purchase electricity. They don't sell electricity at this time. They have to purchase food. They don't sell any food. And in total, they have an income of 2,600 euro. But every month fixed expenses of 1,900 euro, so only 700 euro a month of disposable income. 10 years later, he was a truck driver. Now they are self-driving and very few truck drivers have a job. She is also unemployed. Franz is now an apprentice and gets 400 a month beside his universal basic income of 300. Laura, the child subsidy is replaced by universal basic income, 300 a month. They have a new house. They built this house themselves. Do it yourself. Because they had enough time, because they are unemployed. So use this time good. And so they made their own house, a climate protection superiority house, and have a ground in one of the new villages, land for energy. And for all this, the house has even a big glass house for vertical gardening aeroponics, 60 square meter, they pay a loan of 550 a month, far less than they paid for their apartment before. Yes, water, sewer and garbage fees are the same. Other operating costs, much to do themselves, is now zero. Fuel for the car, now they have electric car and they charge the car by the electricity from the roof of the house, so no expenses. The car tax vanished because in Austria there is zero car tax when it's an electric car. Before they had to pay 50 a month for car tax. Insurance is the same. Then they purchase electricity before, but now they sell electricity. 1,600 kilowatt hours per month, and in average they get 100 out of it. And all the electricity for the house is also from their own photovoltaic systems. Food purchase. They halved the food purchase because they grow so much vegetables and fruits in the vertical gardening system. They sell a little bit of it, they purchase other food, but now they have a positive food balance. They earn already a little bit money from food they sell of their system. So now the income has decreased to 2,000 euro. But because their expenses, their fixed expenses you can't escape every month, have decreased to 880 euros. And at the end, they have 1,120 euro of disposable income, a much higher living standard than before. You hear always about the ecological footprint. This footprint can also be less than zero. Could be a negative footprint if you deliver so much electricity and so you have a balance, and the balance says negative footprint. And also the operating costs of a house can be less than zero if you sell very much electricity. The most important part of the unconditional basic income is to turn losers into winners. Why? In every country are political parties who only make fear. All will be so terrible. You have to elect us. We look that everything remains at the same and you are safe. And these parties are very much against every progress, every necessary change in the society. And they are a big obstacle. But when you can show all these possible losers of all the big changes, don't be afraid. Your life will be, when you lose in this system change, will be better than before. We can make all these changes because when we have this future vision, how good the life will be for all these potential losers, these bad parties, these fear-mongers will have no chance to stop it. This was another video from Roland Mösel, founder of Planetary Engineering Group Earth, and as always, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when I make my next video.